So just a word about the agenda. We're going to start just with 10 seconds about Lama AI, and then we're going to talk about the opportunities and challenges that we found by implementing GPT and different types of LLMs into our core product. So obviously, GPT with me and without me is being used all across the company for marketing purposes, etc. But for today's call, we're going to focus on the usage of LLMs within our core product. And then we're going to walk through a few different use cases that part of them are being built, some of them are already in production, but just to give you sort of a high-level thought process on how we utilize it and why we utilize it and why did we decide to build versus buy. So in a nutshell, Lama was built in order to help facilitate small business lending needs by providing them access to fair capital that is delivered with speed and efficiency. And speed and efficiency are obviously core for success for the company and for our clients and our clients' clients. And that's also where a lot of the AI opportunities lay in order to help us meet this vision and make it come true. So moving on, in our space, in order to connect all the dots and make those things fast and efficient, you need to to create collaboration among different type of deal flow partners that have access to SMB needs. Now, the fact that industry is distributed only means that the data is collected in different ways. So a lot of unstructured data, just because of the way that we operate, but not less important, also because of the way that the different financial institutions and different CPAs, etc., organize their own data, and all the way to the decisioning piece of our partners that need to make a decision whether a certain business owner is legit, and then whether they should underwrite them or not, etc. And that requires a lot of basically technology in order to make this entire process that typically is tedious and very lengthy, and turn it instead of three weeks to 3 months process into a 3 seconds or maybe 3-minute process if it requires a person at the end of the funnel to hit the approval button. And we're operating within the financial industry, so obviously regulation and compliance and a lot of things are apply in a very strong manner. And the opportunities that we try to summarize what's common to the opportunities that we found to build our own models and utilize obviously existing tools that are available today and weren't available before is the ability to build things much faster. So we don't need to do all the data cleansing and tagging, etc., in order to make those models work for us. But our ability also to customize it and basically further train the existing models to our own specific needs or to our customer specific needs allows us to provide a better outcome versus any off-the-shelf solution that was available in the past or maybe is even available today. And to further narrow it down, it has two main use cases in general. One is around productivity, and then is around content and content generation, but again, very specific to our use case. Moving on, obviously there are a lot of challenges for utilizing the technology, because it's relatively new. So there's a lot of unknowns, etc. But the number one, I'd say, challenge that might be a combination of different aspects of the bullets is the hallucinations, basically BSing you with confidence. And the problem with the algorithms that they're built upon statistics and prediction to find what's the next word or info to present. Now, the training sets isn't necessarily validated. So that's part of the data quality problem when we're talking about public LLMs. But you can reference it to your own validated data sets to further train it and make the data more concise and more relevant to you. And I don't know if it's just sort of, I'd say, a wrong methodology, etc., that was used in the past. But if you're looking at Siri, it was introduced to the world probably around 2007, 2008 by Apple. There are a lot of claims that it got more and more stupid over time. Now, I don't know if it's the developers to blame or the crowd wisdom that it was fed by. But we do have a good reason to believe that it's a combination of the two, and confirmed wrong answers that might contribute something to the overall model can make it dumber. Hence, we do see value in catering your own models based on the publicly available ones and the open source one that were trained on large language models and large data sets. But you need to take it with a grain of salt to make sure that it doesn't get worse over time. Another challenge, especially in the financial world, is around explainability. So it's great that we can get to some concrete answers in no time. So for example, take financial statement, that there are too many variations of financial statements to justify training everything on our own, because labeling it, tagging it, creating the different combinations would take forever and would be costly. But the ability to leverage existing models propose, I would say, a new opportunity to actually get better outcome. But for that, you also need to make sure that you're asking or using the prompts in the right manner. So as an example, if you'd ask the GPT models to summarize something, it would summarize it based on the average John Doe knowledge. But if you're using the prompt, basically language that suggests or requests to summarize something as a financial professional or as a CPA, you might get a different answer. So part of the challenges are being resolved by trial and error and presenting different requests of different types to the models to make sure that we're getting the best outcome that is relevant to our platform and our type of users and what they're looking to get. But then if I'm back to the explainability piece, it's not less important to make sure that we can leverage the models, but also to explain or to help explain why they got to the outcome that they got. So not only that we're saving time, but we're also having the ability to use this in order to A, make it better over time, but B, to create a confidence for the humans on the other side that they can actually trust it. And if they don't understand, instead of now searching or digging in too many different forms, it can pinpoint where did it get the data from, and then save a lot of time on the productivity side to find the answers and leave the final judgment call to the humans on the other side. On the security side, there are some concerns that a bad actor can manipulate it. So think about it like code injection to the 90s or the early 2000s, just that in this case, take Gmail as an example, that their GPT solution or LLM solution might read all emails, but what if you could manipulate their LLM by using a specific language within the email that you're sending someone? So there are risks that we're saying just by letting everybody use it in a certain way versus gating some of the information and trying to avoid that. We do believe that a new wave of security companies will be built around the data injection piece that can create a lot of harm. On the privacy side, obviously the open sources are a great tool. First, there are a lot of them and they're great for research, but not all of them allow commercial usage. But those on the OpenAI side, for example, when you're using their API, the data, the prompts that you share are not collected, and then it reduces the privacy issues. But on the other end, when you use the training capability or the fine tuning in order to make the overall algorithm better for your own use case, this could be shared with the public learnings, and that might create some issues. So we do have concerns around that, but we also mitigate it through different techniques. And then prompt dependent is also a problem because there is a limitation to what you could send GPT in terms of the prompt length, in terms of the tokens, etc. So a lot of strategies are being built in order to summarize and basically create a chain of summaries. So we could still leverage, I'd say, enormous amount of data that is coming from a financial statement, as an example, but having the ability to summarize it and extract the most valuable information in order to get to the final ratios that the system needs to calculate in no time. And another thing that we're also using around that is basically connecting it to external, I'd say, calculators and validation sources, so we can make sure that the final outcome is concise based on a specific data set. So if we're looking at a balance sheet, right? Everything needs to be equal on different sides or of a P&L, etc. So we're taking those and breaking those down to different bricks so we could make sure and validate that the final outcomes make sense. And if not, we have the ability to retrieve and then further fine-tune, learn, and improve. So just to give you some idea of some use cases that we're using the GPT for. So if we're looking at the majority of intake forms or applications, they're typically very manually driven fields that you could input different things. We're leveraging the GPT in order to prompt a question in real time to a potential borrower, just like this lady in this picture. So that could guide her as for what data the application needs without having them to fill out it manually, especially via mobile phones, etc., but just speak freely with the system and having the ability to understand what it says, but not less important, also to understand what is still missing in order to get to a full application mode. One of the next frontiers is having the ability of the GPT type of models to actually consume different types of inputs, all the way from pictures and text and voice, and that would even take it to the next level in terms of the ability to extract better outcome. The other use case that we found very interesting is the spreading piece, taking unstructured document and turning it into a structured data set. Now, there are some things like tax returns that might be easier because it's very structured and maybe you have limited variations. But if you're looking at financial statements, there are possibly infinite amount of variations. So training a non-LLM model to do that would be just too lengthy and too expensive and not necessarily would get to the desired outcome. However, using LLMs allowed us in possibly almost no time to get to a very good MVP. Already we passed that MVP and created way more efficiencies, but just to prove the case took the team something like a week or a week and a half. In the past, probably there are companies that's all they do. And then just another one or two examples that we're leveraging it for. So as an example, budget planning as an important thing when it comes to understanding how the funds will be used and make sure that the numbers all make sense. So given the history of data that we can consume from the accounting software of a prospect borrower or from their e-commerce site, etc., allows us to plan according to the best knowledge of the comparison of the market, what they declare that they need the money for, but also using their past patterns and then allowing the clients to fine tune it or tweak it if needed. But the very, I'd say, close to reality template is done in no time. And then lastly, we have the credit memo that is automatically generated, but then not as important for explainability. We also allow the underwriter or the analyst that underwrites the loan to ask specific questions to understand how certain ratios were calculated, pinpoint the right documents or the right places within these documents that the pieces of data came from, and allow them to review it and get to a final conclusion at no time. And what we're measuring is the time that it would take them to get from a start to an end without any of the algorithm that we went through and any of the technology in place, versus utilizing it in order to collect the right data and close the loan. Obviously, on the more complex pieces of it, there is also other complexities that are not related to technologies, just like the need to send maybe some inspector if it's acquiring a real estate or a commercial real estate or anything of that front. So that's why you see the curve at the higher amount basically gets to sort of a ceiling. So that's it on my side.